Okay, today we're going to be talking about the phone system. The phone system we have now is a lot smarter than the one we had before, and therefore it's capable of a lot more than we probably actually want to use. So today we're going to go over some key features. And to get to those features, we're going to start from the web. We can actually access the phone login portal by going to the SharePoint and selecting the link on the front page. It may move around, so I'm not going to bother navigating to that since it's almost always going to be on the front page and will be labeled Phone System Portal. Your username is actually going to be your phone number without any dashes. And your password, if you don't know it, just give me a call and I'll help you out. Okay, so here we are in the front profile page, and under the profile page we have a second page called Profile. Let's start here. Navigating to this page, you can change how your name is presented to users that you call. You can enter other information about yourself. It's totally optional though, no need to get every last detail. Going back, we can go and change our passwords. The password for the web access portal and for the, want to insert in brackets there, a phone portal, are totally separate. So you can set them each individually based on what's easier. For instance, the web access, you have access to a full keyboard. The phone portal, you're going to want to make this all numbers to make it simple for your phone. It has to have a minimum of 6 digits on either one. Before we move on to the incoming calls and all the fun features, we're going to set up a work schedule. This is necessary to take up full advantage of simultaneous ring, sequential ring, and call forwarding. To start with, we've got this empty page here. We're going to select Add. We're going to give it a name. We'll just call this Work, something simple. We'll leave that at Time. You can separate these out. However, it's just an organizational tool. It doesn't actually change the options. Okay, now that we have that, let's select Edit. And here we're going to select Add one more time. And this will give us a name for the first schedule. I'm just going to call this my daily schedule. This is, unless anything changes, this is when I'm coming to work. And I'm leaving at 5 p.m. Oops, got to make sure we put all the digits in there. And recurrence, we're going to set this at daily. We'll leave this at every 1 day. All these options are just fine. We'll say OK. And we can just hit Apply, just to double check. And we'll hit OK to go back. Looks good. Time is personal. That's great. Okay, now moving on to incoming calls. So we have a lot of different options here. However, you'll notice most of them are sort of in a category. You have call forwarding, call busy, call forwarding with no answer versus not reachable, say your phone is unplugged. But they all basically do pretty similar things. They move the caller on to somewhere where you can actually pick up. Sequential ring here is pretty useful. That'll actually ring every phone you want it to in sequence. So it'll start with your base station. After a few rings, it'll move over to the next number that you give it. I'm going to go ahead and set this up right now because this is probably one of the more useful functions available. So I'm going to set it to ring after 4 after 4 rings. It's going to move on to my personal phone. If my base station is busy, I don't want it to move on, so I'm going to uncheck that. And I'm not going to allow the caller to skip the search process. I'm not sure I want to give them any sort of capability over my process. And to start with, I'm going to give it my phone number, like this 301-555-10083. And I'm not going to give it any other numbers, but I definitely could move it on to, say, my pager or my a secondary house phone and so on. Answer confirmation isn't something we need to worry about. If you select help up here, it'll actually tell you what every feature on this page is all about, and that applies to any page really. But that feature is it just adds an extra step before you answer. But let's go ahead and move on down to the scheduling portion of this. We're going to go ahead and select Add. Though it's not clear, this is what you're doing. We're going to call this call forwarding schedule. And this is when we want to use sequential ring. And we're going to say this during our time schedule of work, the one we just created. Now here's where we can narrow down who activates this. We can say any phone number triggers this, but we may just want it to activate for our boss or somebody important. And here we can tell it to go ahead and forward from a specific number, and if I had my boss's number, say 888-555-1234, it'll only forward or move on to the sequential process when that number is calling. So I'm going to select OK. We'll deactivate that. Okay, so we've got it activated. Let's go ahead and hit OK and move back. Simultaneous ring is a lot like sequential, except everything rings at the same time. Now you may not want this, as it's possible you could be sitting at your desk and suddenly someone calls and your base phone, your cell phone, your pager, and maybe even your dog go ahead and ring all at the same time before you have a chance to answer. And obviously that can be irritating. But it may be necessary for certain days where you're just bouncing around between two different locations. You can activate this by typing in a number and selecting on. And you can give it a schedule here to only activate during the schedule you provided. We're going to hit cancel. And there are a lot of other options here you can play around with. If you want to find out what they are, just select them and then go to the help button right up here at the top. And that'll give you a full detailed explanation of all the different features. And if you have any questions, just give me a call and I can find out. Let's go ahead and move on to one other section here that has a pretty profound effect on what we do with all of our calls, the messaging section. Now you can do a lot of things here like manage your greeting, but you can't record it as we stated before. However, we can set up the phone to automatically connect to our voicemail when we dial from our particular phone. Let's go ahead and do that. Select Voice Portal, and we'll say Auto Login, and what this does is ignore the need for a password. So if I'm calling my voicemail from my phone, it's just going to skip that whole authentication process, which will save me a few minutes every day as I retype my voicemail password wrong a few times. Moving up one spot, we can go to Voice Management and actually disable our voicemail if we don't want to use it at all. We can also set it up to notify us by email when we receive a voicemail. So, do that. We can disable voicemail for particular types of calls, or just not have our voice message indicator activate for whatever reason. There's a lot of functions in here that you probably won't ever touch, but these are a few of the key ones that matter. We'll select OK or apply. Finally, the only thing I'm going to point out on this page is the only other thing is greetings. And going here, there's a lot of options in here. You can, if you have multiple greetings recorded, it'll actually show up here when you record them on your phone. They show up as just a generic name with a timestamp on them. And you can switch between those. For instance, if you have a specific greeting set up for when you're out of the office on vacation or on a business trip, you can change those right here, even if you can't record them. The other feature I like to mess around with here is how many rings should it ring before it picks up on voicemail, and you can change that to up to 20 rings. I'm going to leave it at 4 because that seems fine, and stuck at system greeting. If I had a personal greeting recorded, it would actually show up there as well. Okay, that about covers it. If you have any other feature requests or anything like that, feel free to send me an email and I'll take care of it. Have a good day, and I hope you enjoyed the video.